evidence.
Dr. Paul Meyer, professor of ancient history, conducts archaeological research as well as comparisons of sacred and secular sources from the 1st century A.D.
We find the evidence of archaeology beautifully confirms the biblical record. You don't always hear that. You rather hear some radical revisionist archaeologist coming along and say, nothing correlates. And that's wrong. The evidence is overpowering.
There's no doubt that there are critics who will claim that Jesus was not resurrected, and the evidence is very clear in the Scripture and outside the Scripture that that is precisely what happened.
This traveling exhibit from the Israel Museum presents credible archaeological finds relating to the biblical accounts of Jesus' life and death.
Our museum director here in Fort Lauderdale has put together a marvelous exhibit that is of interest both to the Jewish and the Christian communities in our city. There are a number of exhibits that are remarkably significant to the history, the early history of Christianity, and of course to Judaism as well.
The Cradle of Christianity exhibit includes fragments of the Dead Sea Scrolls, significant relics of ancient Judaism and Christianity, elements of a typical Byzantine church, and several remarkable items such as the Pilate Stone.
There were a number of critics who argued that Pontius Pilate really didn't exist, that he was a literary character made up by the writers of the Gospels and then picked up by other pieces of literature. Finally, there was this stone that was discovered. It was the first physical piece of evidence that Pontius Pilate actually existed.
There is also an inscription that identifies him as being a procurator during the time of the Emperor Tiberius, which is precisely according to the chronology that we understand in the Bible.
And finally, there is now no question that Pilate really did exist. But the question that one has to ask oneself is, why would you believe a stone and not believe our sin? Because we could never pay for it ourselves.
The evidence of archaeology is overpoweringly in favor of the biblical text.
There is a remarkable stone that comes from the Second Temple, or Herod's Temple, the temple that was in Jerusalem in Jesus' day.
Josephus tells us, the 1st century Jewish historian, that there were 13 inscribed signs around the inner court of the temple warning any Gentile